I'm Mark Valley, and I have a new podcast where I spot, assess, and have coffee with spies, operators, and agents over stories of action, diplomacy, and intrigue. Check it out at markvalley.com. It's the live drop.
This is Mitchell.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Nate Boyer.
This is Hilliard Guest.
This is Nathan
This
East.
is Rob Bell.
This is J.R. Robinson.
This is Dan Stone.
This is Dr. Bob Greenberg.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, I'm Mark Valley.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hey, this is Anna Vocino, author of Eat Happy Cookbook, and we are on The Break It Down Show.
And now, The Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero, Mark Valley, and Pete A. Turner.
Hey, this is Pete A. Turner, flying solo. John is in Northern California dealing with some grandma stuff. His grandma passed away. We all feel for him and the family. But she had a long and wonderful life, and the candle burned out nice and slow and easy. So it was a gentle landing, and we're all grateful for the time that we got with her. 92 years old. Can you believe that? Oh, wow. Yeah, and
that's
she had
amazing.
A boatload of kids. So
really?
Yeah, he's got like 72 first cousins. John does.
I mean, it doesn't seem mathematically possible, but I suppose it is.
Yeah, you get enough kids getting aunts and uncles. He's got a crap load of aunts and uncles. And then,
they're all very fertile people, apparently.
Yeah, and he's from Guam, so they're Chamorros. So basically, they're all like cousons and stuff. It's like
they're populating.
Crazy. Yeah,
they're populating the world.
Fun. And then Mark Valley is working on his. I don't know if you know who Mark is, but Mark's an actor. He's working on his Master of Fine Arts right now, so he's off writing his book. So it's you and I today.
Good for him.
Heck yeah, he's awesome.
You and I will have a good time.
Absolutely.
And they will be jealous that they didn't join us.
Yeah, so we are super fortunate to have Anna Vocino on. Let's just do this. We'll go across the website. By the way, annavocino.com. Eating, acting, voiceover, stand-up, blogging, recipes, cook. Oh, my God.
It's a lot of things.
Yeah. So let's just kind of, and also, by the way, co-hosting with Vinnie Tortorich, who's been on the show already. You guys have that podcast that
yes.
Vinnie does. And
so we've been doing that for 5.5 years now.
And I want to really just talk about, not so much about Vinnie's show, because that's what we talked about on the Vinnie episode. By the way, Vinnie's episode, I think, was 196, I think it was. Let me see here. That episode was 194. So if you want to see more about Vinnie, go to episode 194 and we can talk about him. But here we're talking about Anna Vocino. Now, let me ask you this. On your website, it says Anna Vocino, and there's little snowflakey type symbols above the end. Is that one there to let us know that it's Vocino, not Vocino or whatever?
No, that's purely a result of my web guy doing some zhuzhy things. I don't know what he's doing. But it was not easy for him to try to figure out, because I was like, here's what I like. I'm a comedian. I do voiceover. Right. I'm an actor, but I also write recipe books and co-host a podcast. So make that into a website.
No, I feel
and he was like, okay.
I feel you.
Sure, lady.
This is my world too, but everybody's like, you have to like focus. And I'm like, well, let's see.
I disagree. Yeah. I mean, I understand. Listen, branding wise, you have to focus. I get it. But I also think some of the most successful people out there right now are multitasking so many different businesses, real estate investments. You know what I mean? Putting out creative content. I mean, look at Oprah. She can act in a movie, but then also produce a television show, but then also do a spiritual. Yeah. What is it called? Like a seminar. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Soul Sundays or whatever it is.
Yeah. Super Soul Sunday or whatever. I mean, she does a million things, and nobody ever goes, Oprah,
and
you
run
need
a
to
TV
focus.
network. Yeah. And now maybe be president of the entire world.
Maybe. I don't know. That could be crazy. But, but I hate to use Oprah as the example because she's always the example. But I'm always like, no one tells Oprah to, turn it down a few notches,
Yeah. I feel the same thing. I have my website, and I just struggle to make it work for me. You keep working at it, but combat vet, spy, cultural expert, podcast, content creator, it gets crazy to try.
But I love it. I loved going to your website and because I didn't know about the combat vet and the spy stuff. So when I went to your website, I was like, oh, that's dope. Like, it was really cool to see all that. So that's why I think it's important to put all that stuff in there, because it makes people more interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah. This is funny. So as I've tried to build this podcast stuff, and we're doing great, but as I've tried to do, I try to get on other shows, and I kind of come hat in hand and say, you don't know who I am, but I'm a really good guest. You should have me on your show. And they're like, oh, maybe. And a lot of them, they blow me off because that's the normal answer. But when they start talking, they get to that point where they realize, and they're like, well, who's in your network? And I'm like, warlords? Al Qaeda, Taliban, because I've literally met with
you don't
these
normally
guys.
hear from.
Right.
Yeah,
but how do you monetize that? You just keep going is what you do. That's how you monetize it.
You do.
So you guys, you and Vinnie, inspired me. I'm always trying to figure out how to eat better, right? Because it took me a long time. I'm a pretty smart guy, but like anybody else, I'm like, wait, hold on. Everybody's been saying this for so long. And now it really makes sense, like NSNG, and I always say hashtag NSNG for life, which it really honestly isn't true. But if I'm the worst NSNG guy, or if I'm the worst vegan or whatever it is, at least I'm focused on more vegetables and less grains. And so that's kind of where I set my thing, and then work from there. Like, that's where the work is for me, right? When I go to the Christmas buffet table, I'm like, they made all these, and I have these really weird mental paths that are well worn.
Oh, yeah, we all do. I'm like, yep. Me too, and everybody else.
I went to a veterans group for my PTSD. We all talk and everything. And these guys are mostly older than me. And I'm like, yeah, milk, you know that milk has sugar in it? They're like, milk's good for you. And I'm like, it's got sugar. Like, it doesn't have sugar. And I'm like, okay, let's see. Fructose, lactose, sucrose. Do you hear the same, like, the sugar is in there. So everybody says different things about diet stuff,
Yeah.
I was with the guys from Everpedia. I don't know if you know about Everpedia. If not, we got to make sure we get you your own. It's like Wikipedia, about 1,000,000 times better.
Really? Yeah. Everpedia. I'm writing this down.
Yeah, we got to see if you've got a page, because anybody can have a page.
I'm sure I don't. No one cares.
No, Everpedia does. I'll have that fixed before the end of the show, and I'm not even lying.
Damn. Okay,
While
cool.
we're talking, I'll be chatting over with the Everpedia guys.
Great.
But the point here is not Everpedia. Those guys are awesome. But the thing is I was talking with them last night, and my boo's like, I don't eat any sugar, and then immediately put a tortilla chip in his mouth.
Well, I have a segment on the podcast called Tales from the Sauna.
Oh, okay.
Which is just crazy shit I hear sitting in the sauna from people who are relatively fit. Being in Southern California, most of the folks at the gym are pretty fit already.
Okay.
I'm probably the least fit of them. And you just hear crazy shit come out of people's mouths. Like one time this man and this woman were talking, and they were talking about how they're trying to really slow down with carbs and, really like take it easy. And then the lady's like, so what I do is I just have a bunch of graham crackers all day. And I was like, wait, okay. And it's hard because you can't interrupt, you can't interject into somebody's conversation.
Yeah.
But you really want to.
You really want to.
But you can't. Yeah. Another guy had said, and this was at a coffee shop, and I swear the universe or God or whoever just places these people right next to me, because I have a million of these stories. But these two guys were talking about how they both had type 2 diabetes, so they needed to be really careful about, their doctor said, make sure you watch your carbohydrate intake. And the one guy said, so I can't have potatoes anymore. And the other guy was like, oh, well, those aren't carbs, and they were arguing about it. And then the one guy says, but I still have about 8 or 9 sandwiches a day.
Oh my God.
It's like 8 or 9 sandwiches a day? That's like a sandwich an hour for a whole work shift. I was like, how many, what?
Yeah.
People say crazy stuff. And so that's part of the reason why Vinnie and I are both motivated to just kind of at least get some truth out there.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then also there has to be room for learning. So we got those people in the sauna. They're like, I only eat graham crackers, and you can't just jump in and blow their world up because they're just not ready for that. They're not ready to be.
Yeah.
But you have to find a way to do it. So how you guys have done it has been really cool. And then I do get to have a beer. I do get to have some pizza. I just have to do it with a lot more attention. So let me back up and go back to my veterans group. We're sitting in there, and one of the guys is Korean, and he's like, I have to eat healthier. And I'm like, that rice is sugar. And he's like, no, I can't give up rice. And I'm like, no, what?
Yeah.
No, give it up. Eat moderation. And he's like, yeah, moderation. That's what we all have to do, moderation. And I'm like, do you know what moderation is for rice? And he's like, no. And I'm like, well, and then you're just eating
a tablespoon of it,
right?
And nobody wants to hear that.
No.
Well, that's the other thing is we all have paradigms, and if you listen back to the beginning of the podcast with Vinnie and me, at the very beginning, you'll hear me go on this whole journey, and I had literally just come off of like, well, I guess I'll just do Weight Watchers again because I want to lose that 15 pounds, and I'll just do Weight Watchers, and it never worked. And I would pay money, and I'm sorry to call out Weight Watchers, but for me, it never freaking worked. And what I would do is I would do this pattern of starving myself, which I was really good at for like 5 days, and then binge. Mm-hmm, you know what I mean? And it just wasn't working, and I didn't realize that. Also too, I was coming off of a 3-year-long depression jag that was so bad. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize until I gave up the sugars and grains and increased my fat intake that it made my brain healthier, which is why one of the reasons why I named the book Eat Happy, because I literally became a happier person. I managed my depression that way. So to me, that was really important to make that shift. And I would do that podcast 1,000 times over again, just to have that new paradigm shift. But it took a little while, and I wanted to count calories. And then it was like, oh, you're giving up sugars and grains. Well, then let me count carb grams and fat grams. And I'm great at counting. I'm awesome at dieting. I am a number one dieter. And then I realized the whole message of NSNG is not a diet.
Right.
It's just, you just eat this way. And so if you are going to have some rice, you probably need to just have a couple of bites of rice.
Right.
And that's a different thing than having a whole poke bowl full of rice.
Yeah, I mean, my wonderful lady, she constantly says these things. She's like, I've already been telling you these things. And I'm like, yes, you're right. How much rice is it? Because I cannot capture in my brain. I cannot believe that a third of a cup of rice cooked is what I get to have. And so I literally take a scoop of that delicious saffron rice, and I say, that's not even a scoop. I mean, by a scoop, I mean like a tablespoon. And I'm like, I'm going to want more of this. Do I just not eat it? And then these pathways that we were kind of referencing earlier, where when I drive by in Walnut Creek, when I'm from the North Bay, the northern part of the Bay Area in California, when I drive by on North Main, the Chick-fil-A there's an automatic trigger for me to get the frosted lemonade. And it doesn't happen anywhere else, but it definitely happens there.
Frosted lemonade at Chick-fil-A? You're not going to get waffle fries and nuggets? Because that's where the gold is at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, well, no, I would get that stuff too, but it's the frosted lemonade that opens the door.
It opens the floodgates. Well, I always say, listen, in 2002, I was diagnosed with celiac disease, which when nobody knew anything about that. And it was because my mom was diagnosed and she called me and said it runs in the family. And I was like, well, I don't have that. I'm an actress. I don't even eat pasta, and not realizing that gluten's in a heck of a lot more stuff.
Right.
So when I was diagnosed, it was like this thing in my brain that says, no matter what, you cannot have gluten. So my cheating looks different, and it's a little tougher to find stuff. So, but my cheating looks like now in New York City, where I was there for a month, when everybody has the most amazing gluten-free pizza, then that's what I'm like, oh, I have to get it. I have to get this gluten-free pizza. It's like so hard to find. But then I wound up having it like every week that I was there.
Oh my God. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but my cheating looks a little different because I always have that thing. It's like no gluten. So therefore I cannot have any Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets or the chicken biscuits, which are amazing. But it's a funny trickery thing that we do to ourselves, because then I go, oh, but I can have this gluten-free pizza. That'll be my cheat thing. And it's still very much residual of diet mentality. Instead of just going, I haven't had pizza in a while. Why don't I have a few bites and then get over this whole craving thing and move on with my life?
Yeah, the craving thing's really tough because certain things get locked in. Like we already know that if we bring turtles in this house, they will not be in the house long. So they just can't come in the house. I won't crave them if they're not around. But if we bring either one of us, my girl or myself, we'll eat them. Let's not buy that. Let's not buy. So certain things, if they're just not available, they don't trigger the craving. But there's other things that always sit there and just irritate until I find some way to respond to it. Because otherwise I go crazy fighting it. and it ends up the break ends up being worse. So I'm trying to sort through that.
I always find I have a process that I like to do every day. That is, sometimes it has to do with food, but most of the time it doesn't. But every day I like to think back to yesterday. And I think, what's something that made me really uncomfortable yesterday? Did I get into a skirmish, like a verbal thing?
Yeah.
Did I have a road rage thing? Did I get a rejection and hurt my feelings? What happened yesterday that made me feel like shit? And then I can always tie that back to whatever that thing that happened. There's a negative belief that was activated. Yeah. Because if the negative belief wasn't activated, then I wouldn't have this impulse to beat up on myself. Yeah. And if I don't have the impulse to beat up on myself, then I'm not going to go and try to eat 10 pounds of cheese and gluten-free pizza. You know what I'm saying?
I love cheese.
So, no, cheese is the best. And I found out that dairy activates my autoimmune response for the celiac.
Okay.
And through a series of blood tests working with a doctor. And I was like, I literally, when she told me that, I thought I would leap across her desk and strangle her.
I know.
She's like, you really can't have cheese. I was like, no, you don't have cheese.
Yeah, right.
That's the last thing I have.
That's my
last indulgence.
Right.
It's not true. It was just totally a reactionary thing. But
right.
But anyway, so I find that when I am doing that thing you're talking about, which is rooting around in the kitchen, trying to scratch an itch, and usually it winds up being having a spoonful of peanut butter or almond butter and then a piece of really dark chocolate, and it generally takes care of it.
Yeah.
There's always something going on at the heart of that. Always. It's never just like all of a sudden I need to have something creamy and rich and sweet.
Don't tell me anything specific that's from your life, but give me an idea of what that might be like so we can all kind of relate to what that thing is.
Oh, I'll give you a specific one. The one that I felt that I worked on from yesterday was my daughter is home for her first Christmas break from college, and she has been so sassy. And for some reason, I ignorantly expected her to come home, having all this collegiate wisdom and appreciating where she came from. And instead, it was that the one we've all been through, which is, I know everything now. I've lived in New York for 4 months, and you guys don't know anything. And as much as this logically, what it awakens in me is a fear that I'm going to have a difficult adult relationship with my daughter like I had with my own mother.
Right.
You know what I mean? And when I realized how uncomfortable I was yesterday with how snotty she was being to me, and I was like, but what is it? What is it that's really at the heart of that? At the heart of that, I am scared that I'm going to repeat the same pattern of dysfunction that I did with my own mother. And then once I realize that, I go, oh, now we have something to work with to heal.
Okay. Yeah. I'm big on these kinds of things. I call it, that's where the work is. I can be afraid of this. I can ignore it. I can want this outcome. But where's the work? Like in Afghanistan, right. we want to get the Ministry of Agriculture to be more engaged with the farmers. Well, he won't go. Okay, well, that's where the work is. You don't just say he's a loser, doesn't want to work. Let's discover why he won't do it. Let's talk to the farmers, and let's understand where the path is, because that's where the work is. You can just force him and grab him and be like, you're coming with us. But that's not building a positive relationship. No, that's just dominating some poor guy, Right. So,
for me personally, I made a habit for the past couple of years. I think it was like a New Year's resolution one year to I call it pulling a negative belief, because I always feel like, when you realize that you do something and it's subconscious, but then once you realize that you do it, you're like, oh my God, I do that. And it feels like you feel lighter. Yeah. So I always use the terminology, I've pulled a belief, because I feel like it's getting to the root of these, core, and we all have kind of the same core things going on.
Sure.
I want to be validated. I want to feel safe. Right. I want to, all those things. And I want to be seen. I want to be loved. I want to be appreciated. And I want to be those things for other people. So it's interesting how something makes you uncomfortable, but then when you get to the root of it, it's generally the same core 4 to 5 beliefs that come up fears that come up.
No,
So
yeah.
every day I do that. I have to do that process every day, or else there's no way to move forward. You just repeat the same dramas over and over again.
I think these are the midlife lessons. You know, you've gotten past how to do a lot of other things. You've dealt with close death, you know, all these things.
Yeah.
But it's these things that we deal with where we have to figure out how to get into the other gym, you know, like the gym for like my mental well-being, but the gym for my physical well-being. But, you know, how do you maintain yourself? How do you fix broken pathways that, like, I do not need cake. I don't even want this cake, but, you know, like, how do I fix that pathway? And one of the things I keep having to figure out how to learn, because apparently I'm stubborn, is ego is like cheese. You know, it's like, I love myself. My ego will constantly make me screw something up. And when I just learn to resist that itch to insert my ego, not to be ego free, but when I can not constantly lead with ego as the main thing, be afraid of, like, I can't put this up because no one's going to like it. Like, first off, someone has to give a fuck, you know?
Right,
like,
right.
That hurts the ego as well. But
Sure.
I've learned a lot about, you know, it's just like, first get over yourself, you know, create these things, put them out there. Not everything's going to be perfect, but, you know, the Beatles didn't write 1,000 perfect songs. They wrote 85 wonderful songs and then 1,000 others, you know, whatever. So ego for me is like that thing where overseas working, it's not about my success, it's about my partner's success. How do I find ways to enable them to do, and it was always a reduction of their ego as well. Like get out of your own fear, out of your own way, you know, and allow yourself to be vulnerable so you can get to where the work is.
Oh gosh, absolutely. And I feel like living in Los Angeles and working in television, you see egos running rampant all the time. And I've noticed that I've cultivated a wonderful friend group who is basically my family, because we don't have family out here.
Okay.
But, you know, raising a child out here and like cultivating a friend group where I have naturally gravitated to the people where we don't get our egos involved. Like that thing where if your friend is doing well, you feel hurt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Or if you're doing well, your friend feels hurt and can't be there for you.
Yeah.
That's totally an ego thing, because we all know that, like, just because Jim is successful and Jane isn't, they have nothing to do with one another.
Right.
Nothing. You know, but the ego wants to go, why don't you have that? You deserve it more. You've worked hard.
Yeah.
You didn't. They don't deserve it. They're lazy. They don't even work hard.
Yes.
They're not even a good actor. You know what I mean? Like we want to say those things to ourselves, and it's just not. It's such bullshit.
It is. It is. That whole thing is. Here's the other thing: is accepting that it's all right to think that way, to react that way. But then you have to do the adult work of saying, oh, that's bullshit. It's okay that I felt that way, but my actual action, my actual next step is not going to be based on these things.
Right. And that's exactly what I'm saying about the pulling the belief. So I look back and I go, if I did something like that where I don't like my behavior, or I don't like the way I responded to that, if you can very clinically, which is the most difficult part, first of all, you have to recognize that something made you uncomfortable. A lot of us don't even want to admit that you know what I mean? Like sadness or anger or all that stuff is very difficult to look at, and we squelch it a lot. So it's, first of all, you even have to go, oh, I was sad about this thing yesterday.
Right.
Or I was a dick about this thing yesterday. And then you have to go, well, what was that? Because I don't want to be a dick. I don't want to be driven by my ego. So what is that? You know what I mean? That's exactly what I'm talking about. So generally, if I just look like, when was I uncomfortable yesterday? Something will instantly come to me. And not a day goes by where you don't experience something that makes you uncomfortable. Sorry, but that's just the truth.
That's just the truth, especially as an adult. Like, as soon as you think you've got something figured out, it's like, oh, don't forget about this. And you're like, son of a, you know, like just.
You know, we never learn anything when we're feeling really good. Have you noticed that? Like, we kind of do, but it's like you learn the most when you have fallen on your face.
Right.
And then you have to pick yourself back up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially when you fall on your face and then someone you know dies. And you're like, I wasn't even done getting up yet. Like, you know.
That is really rough.
Right. You know, and I'm at an age, as I'm approaching 50, and I'm going to talk about your age and I'll get to your business. But A lot of people.
Oh, you can. I'm 44.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the people that we know that haven't taken care of themselves, that had a congenital thing where the time was ticking and no one knew, those people are dying in our lives, and parents are dying, and it's like you're going to have to start dealing with that. And here's another area where, again, in midlife, you have to understand that nobody's good at people dying. Some people handle it this way, some people handle it that way. It's okay to screw this up because it's not easy. So
it's funny that you say that because I've been thinking a lot about it, and I think because I guess working in comedy too, comedy is a young man's game, and I'm friends with a lot of people in their 20s and 30s who are also comedians, and the folks in their 20s and 30s are having grandparents die. Mm-hmm. They haven't gotten to the parents dying phase yet. But it's really interesting because I know for me, when my mom died, it was like I couldn't believe that was the first time that I sat with somebody as they died.
Right.
I was like, how do we not do this?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I was so sheltered from it. And I get that as a parent, you want to shelter, like my mom sheltered me from my grandparents' deaths. Mm-hmm. But it was like, I wish we were a little more as a society open about it and didn't try to, squirrel it away.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I always get the push where I'm going to engage with, and I am a connector. I am an engager already, but I always want to ramp up the effort and just let people know I care about them, because I don't want it to be, I'm talking to other people how much I love them once they're gone,
Oh, yes. That's so true.
I always get like this impulse, like I have to do this more. And that's sort of how I handle these things and try to comfort one another. Hey, so everybody, by the way, we're talking to Anna Vocino, AnnaVocino.com, at Anna Vocino, all those things. And she has I'm telling you this because I love her message on eating and how she does it. She has a wonderful cookbook called Eat Happy. You can get it on Amazon. And it's about trying to just improve how you eat. It's not a diet. It's not, we're only going to eat things that are orange. We're not going to drink a bunch of syrup and cayenne pepper.
No,
it's just,
good Lord, no. I already tried that one.
Right. Yeah. Well, those things don't work, right? That's why this is a better approach to it, but it's a healthier way to eat. You can still have wonderful things. One of the things that I'm learning is as I'm trying to, pick vegetables more and not necessarily be vegan at all, but just vegetables as a default. How can I get some vegetables
eat way
in?
more vegetables. Absolutely.
Right. Because being almost 50 is not getting easier on my body, and it turns out like it gets harder every year as it goes on.
Well, it's like every morning there's like a new ache or pain, and you're like, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
I will not stand for this.
And sometimes it's like, what in the world is this pain associated to? Like, are you just hurting because you want attention today, left ankle? Because there's nothing going on here, and then it's gone, and you're like, well, why did that hurt?
Yeah. Well, I did an interesting experiment with a friend of mine 3 years ago, and I come back to it and I repeat it. And that is my best friend, her name is Andrea, and she called me and she was like, we're going to do 90 days of no drinking. And I was like, all right, I'll do it because you need the support. Right. Like, because you're Andrea, you're an alcoholic. And she was like, and then she called me back the next day. She goes, we're going to do 100 days. We're doing 100 days. And I was like, okay, we're going to do 100 days of no drinking.
Okay.
And I was like, whatever. I'm not a big drinker. It's going to be totally fine. And then on like day 5 or 6, I was like, I miss having that little cocktail at the end of the day, my vodka soda.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And then by the end of 2 or 3 weeks, when I had gotten over, I'd basically been to a lot of parties and a lot of dinners and not drank at all. And I was like, yeah, it's fine. I can do this. But I realized at the end of every day when I would make my little vodka soda, I was muting myself. And so whatever thing annoyed me that day or whatever bad thing happened, I would mute it by having my end of the day cocktail. Now, the difference between me and an alcoholic by traditional standards would be an alcoholic would then have 4 more vodka sodas and pass out. Right? I would stop. So therefore society says you're not an alcoholic if you stop. And so I was like, this is really interesting. And so I noticed, okay, so you feel ornery at the end of the day. What are you going to do? Are you going to just continue to feel ornery?
Right.
Or are you going to take care of this? And are you going to like fix it? And so I wound up fixing it and then having just these amazing bumps in my life, like just amazing career jumps, amazing manifestations that happened because I was clear. And then one of the manifestations too that also happened was I would blame when I woke up and felt achy or like my hands were stiff the next morning, I would be like, oh, I shouldn't have had that vodka soda. And then when I didn't drink for 100 days, I was like, oh no, this is just happening. You know what I mean? And I was like, we need to address this. We need to get healthier. And then what happened with that experiment on day 99, my mom died.
Oh, wow.
And boy, let me tell you, I was because the old me would have been like, screw it. I'm going to go back to the hotel after a day in the hospital. I'm going to go back to the hotel and just pound a couple of these vodkas, you know what I mean? And go to bed. And I'm so glad I was clear-headed for the whole thing.
I wanted to take a second out of the show and talk to you guys about our sponsor, WeFixYourScript.com. What I love about these guys is they're encouraging you, just like John, Mark, and I, to create something. If you think screenwriting is your thing, or if you've got a script that you're kind of stuck on, this is what you do. You don't got to buy anything. Just give these guys a call. Schedule a 15-minute consultation for free. It's WeFixYourScript.com. I highly encourage you guys to support these guys. Reach out to us. Reach out to them. Reach out to WeFixYourScript.com.
Now, that being said, it helped me to realize that I could be even more moderate with my drinking.
Yeah.
And that was it was a really good experiment. And my friend Andrea now, she went back to drinking but has now been sober for 2 years. So I know. So it was funny, but we always joke. I'm always like, I don't need to do that because you're the alcoholic, Andrea. And then I got my ass handed to me. You know what I mean? Like, no, you had some lessons to learn, girly. There's a lot of things to do with food and alcohol and bad habits to fill the void.
Incredible. Yeah, it's incredible. You know, like we're made of the stuff that we eat and drink. And you're right. You know, the tendencies of the alcoholic are amplified in the person that hides bottles and all those things. But let's be honest, when you go to grab that drink and you're drinking because you don't want to feel the way you feel, that's no different. You know,
it's no different.
It's just you've got the gift of moderation. And I was learning the other day that 2 drinks for you is binging. Anything more than 2 drinks for you is binging. And for me, it's 3. And I'm like, well, what if you drink over 10 hours? So like, you drink over 10 hours, that's a binge. And I'm like, oh yeah, well,
that's a binge.
Technically, I guess you're right.
But I mean, and here's how you know it. If I had 2 drinks, I would totally be like not drunk, like sloppy drunk, but totally buzzed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. My judgment is impaired. I should not drive a car. Like,
right.
That's enough.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I want a cocktail. I'm just
yeah. Some of that. We've got some of that pumpkin pie moonshine, some in the back of the fridge that that's the other thing.
Pumpkin pie moonshine.
Oh yeah. It's so good. Ooh, yeah. Or maybe it's apple pie. It's one of those pies.
Oh, I don't
really delicious.
I don't like that sweet stuff. I will say that I have shaken the sweet tooth when it comes to coffee drinks and alcohol drinks. Can't deal with any sugar in my drinks.
Yeah, I didn't even become a real coffee drinker until my 40s. Then I'm like, yeah, let's introduce this, just to give a pep up or, just to have something to put in my mouth. That's 5 calories and has really no sugar in it. So yeah, iced coffee all day long for me. I'm fine with that. And I can always go to sleep. I don't have a problem with that. Never a problem.
You metabolize it quickly.
I must be.
Yeah.
I could literally drink coffee, lay down and be asleep. I could use it to stay awake, but it just doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to ask you a little. Okay, wait, hold on. Let me also say this. Right now, while we speak, Everpedia is making you a profile page.
I feel like an Everpedia princess.
You'll like it. These guys are awesome. Learn enough about them. Let's get back to you. So, comedy with the husband. I watched your one bit, and these are the funny things. I read a listicle the other day about like the funny realities of like adult relationship sex that are just never discussed, and it's hilarious. It's stuff like, and they didn't even get all of them, but they nailed what they needed to nail down. Like I'm having sex, and God, this bed is making so much noise. I've got as the dude, I'm like, I think it's a 9/16 nut that I've got to get my wrench. Oh oh, and that's right. Damn it. That stupid washer was, and so I'm like, oh, that's right. I'm having sex.
Oh, wait, focus. This is supposed to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like the time, one of the ones was like the times when you have sex and just no matter what you do, it's just it's not going to happen. It's not going to be an orgasm for either of you. And it's just okay. Like you can go,
right.
It just, but, I forget where I was going. I got distracted by comedy with your husband.
Yes.
And I loved it because you had the thing on the website on your annavocino.com. You had the thing about how your husband is in a fight and he doesn't even know you're mad at him.
Right.
It's like hilarious.
Yeah, I say the thing like that. This one is, we're a couple, we fight, and this one's more for the ladies. Like, do you ever just kind of feel like I'm mad at him? Like, you don't know why exactly, but you're just gonna like sit in it and just be mad at him. Like, he hasn't given you a reason yet, but he'll give you a reason eventually.
He will.
He will.
Yep.
And then he's like, this one's for the men out there. What the fuck? You guys do that? And that always seems to play really well whenever we do that part. But and then we go on to in the act to do an improvised fight because we've been married 18, almost 19 years now. We can fight about anything. So we take a suggestion from the audience and we fight about it.
No, that's hilarious. My buddy was going through some struggles with his wife for a while, and like legit, like they may not make it through. They made it through, thank goodness. But one of the times, they were going to try to have their very controlled and calm. We won't be mad at each other Saturdays, but they're going to go do something fun, like go to the beach, right? As they worked on it, and before he woke up, he was already in trouble for being late to this thing that they were about to do on Saturday.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And he's like, I don't understand. I'm like, dude, you can't understand that. It's not about that. There's something else.
Well, yeah.
But you cannot get in trouble while you're sleeping,
What? Well, this is not necessarily true. When I was 8 months pregnant with our daughter, I had a dream. So this must have been 1999. Okay. I had a dream where I was so mad at my husband. I was so mad at him. I sat up straight in bed and I turned to him and I punched him as hard as I could in his chest while he was sleeping. And he woke up and he went, huh? And I woke up and realized what I had done and I just went, sorry. And I went back to sleep.
Sorry. That's like adult shorthand there too. And he's like, okay.
I know. He's like, oh, he didn't even know what happened. But I mean, like, it's just so messed up. But listen, my husband and I, we have been through hell and back, and we figured we're both comedians. Why not do a dual act and put some of our experience out there? Because a lot of us, comedy for me is almost alchemical. You know what I mean? It's like if we can laugh at ourselves and identify with what's being said, it pops the balloon of the pressure of what we're living with in our everyday life. And sometimes if you just see like another couple going through it, and we love each other very much, but there's a lot of bullshit we call out on each other. You know what I mean? And also too, it's probably a little bit of an empty nest reaction. We're like, well, she's gone, so let's write an entirely new thing that's never been done.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too is to keep creating. You guys are obviously creative people, but all of us, life is supposed to get sweeter as we get better at it. So let's let it, do that and continue to create. I've got a friend that oftentimes I'm one of those people that people call when they want to just get stuff off their chest and everything else. By the way, I just want to press pause real quick, and I want to, while we're talking, I'm giving you permission, go to everpedia.com.
Okay.
Everpedia, and then type in the words Anna Vocino, or Anna Vocino, and you're going to be happy. We have, my friend has this passion for going and looking up all things Donald Trump and then sending me these random disjointed texts. And I'm like, you have to stop doing this.
Yeah, it's crazy making.
You are filling your life with poison. He's like, no, I love it. And he's an alcoholic. So, I urge him, I'm like, you're getting a hit in another way. Like you're taking something that excites you, but does not give you joy. What gives you joy? Is that equal to your daughter's hug? Can't be. Don't tell me that it is, because it's not.
Right.
And I had to practically beg him to pull out his old poetry from 20 years ago. I'm like, do something with it. Put it on the web.
Right.
I dare you, to do it. And do that. If you're going to look at Donald Trump stuff, great. Do it. Tell me how long you do it each week. You couldn't tell me, and I'm like, that's bad, because it's something that's creating a havoc in your life. And then how often are you creating something that's good? So
it's so true. I very early on, I was so lucky that she's still a dear friend, but when we first made friends, we were kind of like, we would be friends based on bitching about other things in life or other people or whatever, things we didn't like. And a guy who was a mentor to me said, be careful about creating friendships of adversity where it's you two against the world.
Yeah.
Because then if something good happens with one of you, you know what I mean? You're like, you're building, you don't want to build a negative platform. And it's tough to see that you're doing that. It's also tough because a lot of stuff goes on in this world and we just have access to constant barrage of info that we have no control over what happens in this world. And it sucks. It activates the thing within all of us where we want to help the world and make it a better place and fix everybody. And you just can only do what you can do.
Let me fix you.
Yeah, and you're not helping anybody by getting super depressed.
Yeah. And then bringing the other person down with you, and then you spiral together, and it's terrible. Yeah. No, absolutely. It's funny that we went down this road.
I know it is. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. But so the comedy, getting back to that, the comedy is a thing that you guys do like as a hobby. Are you guys going out to the Comedy Store?
Yeah, no, we go out to the comedy clubs. We do shows in New York and LA. Shows are always on my website. We're doing one at Flappers Friday night. Here in Burbank. And then, we want to do it as much as possible. We're right now, we're doing about 15-minute sets.
Okay.
But we're writing a whole show. And so now we're just figuring out, like, do we want to produce our own show?
Right.
Hey, the possibilities are endless these days.
And working on that process way better than worrying about stuff you can't fix, like what Donald Trump's going to do tomorrow.
Right.
And
I'm
all about that.
Infinitely more fulfilling than watching 40, usually male 25 to 35-year-old comics talk about their impressions of Donald Trump. To me, it's a little more interesting.
Yeah. Well, and we love stuff about life in comedy because, it is the stuff that you talk about, the fact that you can tell that this is for the ladies, and it's not disparaging, that's not the right word, but it's illustrative of the challenges of being a woman in a relationship with a dude and going, I know this is crazy. And then he's like, yeah, what the fuck? It's hilarious, and everybody gets to laugh from it. So
and we're happy to embarrass ourselves in front of everybody so that we can all have that experience. We can all relate to it.
You guys should do. Here's Pete giving you some advice.
Okay, yeah, lay it on me.
You guys should go to Vegas, and at the South. I always get South Coast and South Point wrong. There's a mall by me called the South, whatever. The casino South. It's the South Point, South Coast, whichever one's south on the Strip. They have a thing called the Dirty at 12:30 on. I think it's on Saturday nights. And, if you're in Vegas, you should just book it and the two of you go down and do your act. Don't spend any money going out there because it's not a paying gig, I don't think. But it is a great audience.
That sounds fun. The Dirty at 12:30.
Yep. If you type in the Dirty at 12:30, you'll see it on the web. It's super fun.
Awesome.
And this is not an ad in any way at all. It's something I legitimately enjoy doing because there's comedians who are like, yeah, I'm in town. Shoot, I'll do a set. And they go out and they do a quick set. So
that's great.
And the crowd is awesome because it's that kind of crowd. It's the couples. They're like, what do you want to do now? The kids aren't here. Well, let's
have a chance to stay out late. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And then you can be raunchy because it's at midnight. So you guys should definitely do your act there.
Oh, that's great.
Do whatever you want. Yeah.
We will.
Do you? Okay. So I know you act. Hold on. Acting. I know you write books. I know you do the podcast thing. I know you're doing comedy. Are you also writing screenplays or any of that kind of thing?
No, I don't do that. I leave that stuff to my husband. He actually today is pitching a show. He's been pitching all week to like HBO, FX, Showtime, Hulu, YouTube, and it's been a grueling week for him. But hopefully it will. Hopefully it will be profitable, or it could all just die. And not sell anything, and then he's back to the drawing board. It's very interesting to see how hard you can work to have nothing happen, and then how little you can work and then something happens. You just never know. But right now, as we record this, he is literally in pitching I think it's YouTube. They did FX at noon, and they're doing YouTube at 2:30 or 3.
Great. I want to have him on the show. I love this kind of stuff. I love,
it's super cool. It's super cool.
And then you said a key thing too. You said you pitch and either they buy it, semicolon, or they don't.
Or they don't.
Those are okay outcomes. It's okay if they don't. Not every, the normal answer is no. So let's understand that they might, and we'll get excited. And if not, it's the same thing. We'll go back to work doing other stuff.
I feel like the key to making it in Hollywood, if anyone's ever going to come out to Hollywood and make a go of it, whether you want to be an actor or a writer or a producer or a director or anything, is just to figure out how to feel like nothing is moving forward and how to not feel like a piece of shit because of it, and to keep creating and just know that eventually you stick around long enough, they have to hire you.
Yeah, we had, I don't know if you know Chad Michael Collins, but he's an actor.
Oh, yeah.
He lives in Toluca Lake. And we did an interview there with him. Yeah, he's awesome. And he works all the time, gets all kinds of work. He knows that he's got a certain type. And he's like, I'm super fortunate to constantly be working. He's figured out, it's like the main thing. On his episode, we talked about this. It's show up on time.
Right.
Hit your marks. Tell the truth. And that sounds simple. But the truth has to be the truth that's needed in the moment, not your truth. That truth, whatever that is, if you can figure that part, if you can actually hit your marks and actually show up on time, I defy you not to figure it out at some point. You might have to improve within that set, but don't make it more complicated than that.
Here is a funny Chad Michael Collins connection.
Nice.
He and I did a show together this year, but I was voiceover for one of the characters, and he was the lead. It's a show that was called Extinct, and he was Ezra, and I was the yellow drone. Did 10 episodes.
You were yellow?
I'm yellow drone.
No kidding.
Wait, so you know that show?
Yeah, well, we had him on, so I did show prep, and I've been watching it. Yeah, so I haven't finished the whole season, I don't know if I think it didn't get picked up, which is a shame because I was interested in the story. But you're right, that's fantastic.
Because it's based on an Orson Scott Card novel, I think, or a short story. I'm not sure.
I want to get him on the show too. Yeah, so BYU TV, you guys, it's a free, and I'm saying the words BYU TV. Understand that it's not like a Mormon show.
It comes off that way, but there's going to be a big misunderstanding with it. But it's not.
Right. It's not a religious show.
No. This is a sci-fi show that they did based on an Orson Scott Card novel. Yeah, isn't that crazy? So I was Yellow Drone, and he was the lead guy, Ezra.
That is fantastic.
Isn't that fun?
I love it. Yeah, it is fun.
But we don't know each other, and we've never met, which is the case for most of my stuff, because doing voiceover, you usually are just by yourself recording. And I did a movie called Batman: The Killing Joke, and it's basically the origin story of the Joker, and who's been played by Mark Hamill for many years now. And I was so excited because they were like, "Oh, you and Mark Hamill are going to record," because I played his wife in like flashback scenes to where, and she gets killed, and then that's kind of his beginning of his devolution into insanity. Right. So I was so excited because I was like, "Oh my God, I get to work with Mark Hamill!" Yeah. And then, of course, I got there, and they're like, "No, it's just you." And I was like, "Of course.
Yeah, you get to work with this microphone.
Yeah, but my scenes are all with him.
Yeah,
but we've never met. Yeah,
it's weird. It's weird how it's weird how Hollywood's changing. All these things are evolving. It's also awesome that a place like BYU can say, we're going to put out, wholesome, good, family valued programming, and you have Amazon, and you have all your poor husband's like, I've got 120 places to pitch at now because all these places are buying content. So it's fascinating. Yeah, it's a fascinating time to
is
be in that creative space. Yeah, what's your husband's name, by the way?
Lauren Tarquinio.
Alrighty, so we got to check.
So another Italian name that no one knows how to pronounce.
Yeah, I Torquinio, but that's tough. Do you speak Italian?
A little bit. Like I know enough to get food, and to get like directions.
That's better than me. I can say things really basic things, and then I can say it in a Spanish accent when I'm trying to speak Italian. And I'm terrible at all languages. I have a little bit of capacity in a lot of languages, but no actual mastery,
Yeah.
So it's funny.
Me too.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So how is the book doing? Are you getting positive reviews?
Yes. Well, this is probably an argument for doing a podcast and establishing an audience before you're trying to sell a bunch of products. Okay. I don't sell a bunch of products. Vinnie has some products to sell. I am only selling my book. We have been making a free podcast for 5.5 years. So we have established a very wonderful, loyal audience, and they all seem to really love the book. Now, the book, I'm not like a cookbook author by trade, so I had to learn how to do it right. And I had a few people in publishing tell me, unless you hit yourself with a celebrity chef or a famous entity that has to do with food, no one's going to buy your book, and they're not going to trust that your recipes work. And while I understand why they say that, because nobody wants to take a chance, I was also like, fuck you guys. And but I made sure that they were never proven right. Like, I made sure all of the recipes work. I made sure that everything turns out well. And so when it came out, it did well, and it has caught on. And then there have been a few boosts, like, when I was able to go on Adam Carolla, that was a big boost. Yeah. Zoe Deschanel found it. I have no idea how, but she Instagrammed it to her 4.7 million followers, and that was a big boost for it. So like little things like that, obviously, whenever we can have influencers.
For sure. Yeah.
Do something like that is great. But no, the book's gone really well. I've learned a ton. The second one is supposed to be out November 13th of this year, but we'll see. We'll see if I get it done.
We'll see how that goes. Yeah. No, this is an important thing. And so there's a guy named Mark Schaefer, who's really kind of one of the leaders in the content marketing strategy thing. And he's, there's a lot of things you have to do, but one of the things you don't control is that Zoe moment. You just don't. Right. The only thing you can do is create it, and then when someone finds it and it explodes out, that's when you have your chance. But you have to do all of the work in the blind ahead of that, knowing that I've put together a good book. I'm going to go on to the next thing, and then and you do a podcast and you get to talk about your stuff. And one of the things I truly believe is that as you and Vinnie are talking, you're good people. You are such a great guest, by the way. You're doing fantastic, and it's so easy to talk to you. Yeah.
Yay.
But people want to buy things from their friends, and you could become someone's friend when you talk to them 500 times, the people who listen to the Break It Down show dig us. I dig them. I talk to them all the time. There's a girl, Katie in Michigan, who actually we have a guy that does screenwriting. He's like a script doctor. He, does a couple of things that work, and one of his side jobs, she was listening to the Break It Down show, and she heard his ad. She's like, "Oh my God, is that you?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's me." So it's great to know that out there's Katie in Michigan, and I do care about these people, and I want to hear from them. And when we put out a book or we do a whatever, it's a wonderful time to be able to do these things because you can create influence.
For sure. And I feel very lucky that the book has done so well. But I also, did I learn everything from, I even had to get the book printed myself. I couldn't do print on demand because I needed the paper to be nicer to really showcase the photographs, And so I learned all about it.
Why did I pick a cookbook?
I know. Yeah, and also, hilarious. Too, I had such a moment of like a few years ago, my best friend Andrea ran into an actress who is a very well-known actress who had just come out with a cookbook. And this is long before I came out with my cookbook. And she said, the casting directors were running late and and the actress was getting impatient. But she overheard her talking. She's like, "Oh, I'm so busy. I just came out with a cookbook." And Andrea and I were like, "A cookbook? Like, that's not even that's not a real book. Like, it's a cookbook." Yeah. Okay, well, you worked so hard. You probably didn't even write it.
Yeah.
And then I decided about a year later to do a cookbook, and I was like, "Oh, this is the universe going, stop being a dick."
Yeah. Right?
because you think writing a cookbook's so easy? Guess what?
Yeah. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, it's like a Brady Bunch episode,
it is.
Smash cut to you writing a book.
Smash cut to me writing a book and it taking 4 years. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And going, why did I do this? Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I wanted to quit 1,000,000 times.
I wanted to ask you, so here's one of the things I try to help anybody I can create a podcast because I believe in podcasting, but also believe in creating things. And one of the leading questions is, how do I monetize? Well, let's forget that for a second because I always say, first off, have a good show. And then to have a good show, there's 100 things you have to master to have a good show. But the one thing that really is tough, you can have a great show. There's shows that are way worse than ours, but way bigger. How do you build an audience? That's the most important question. Because look, you can monetize your show with 5 fans, but you're not going to make any money. You can fool someone into spending money in advertising, but they've got a fool for a client, and you're a fool for thinking that they're going to keep doing it. So how do you build an audience and get people to pay attention when you're doing a podcast, writing a blog? I mean, you do all these things. When you're going to try to write a book, how do you get people to care?
How do you get people to care about
what you're creating? How do you build an audience? What do you think makes the difference between someone like you and someone that hasn't quite figured it out?
I mean, gosh. Do a good show. Like what you said, like, I don't know. When Vinnie and I first started, the only reason Vinnie asked me, because I had produced other podcasts before. I hadn't been on one. But I'm always happy to talk into a microphone. And he asked me, and then, because I knew how to do the technical aspect, we didn't realize that we would have such good chemistry. Right. I also didn't realize he wanted to do 3 episodes a week forever. But ultimately, he was right. And that's what helped us grow our audience, is we constantly put out new content. I think being consistent, putting out new content, and being fun and engaging. Like listen, when you're doing something in the fitness space, in the health and fitness area, yes, there are lots of people to interview, and yes, there's information to get out there, but really the key points boil down to a few pieces of information. Cut out sugars and grains and move your body.
Right.
And we're now to podcast episode 1000 will be in February.
Wow.
And so what are we going to do? We're not just going to, for us,
right?
We know ourselves, and it doesn't work to just give dry information the whole time. That doesn't work it might work for somebody else. And in fact, there are podcasts I listen to where I'm like, just purely for information, and they are the most boring doctory type, and that's fine.
Yeah.
They're doing what they do.
Yeah.
But then there's others where I love their personality so much. I mean, how many of us have listened to podcasts because we love the guest and we love their personality?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's I would say do what you do. Don't try to do what other people do. The other thing is that you have to be consistent. You have to keep putting out content. And I would even say when you get started, you need to do more than once a week for a little while.
Yeah.
Until you kind of get a regular audience. And also, too, so you bank a lot of episodes and you have a bunch of back catalog for people. So if they like you, they can go back and listen to a bunch of episodes.
Yeah.
But I would say, too, there's another element of things being organic as far as growing an audience. You have to just trust that it's working.
Yeah.
There are obviously things you have to do, but you have to trust that you're not going to get everybody. Mm-hmm. In fact, you're not going to get most people. You're only going to get your people.
Right. That's all you want.
That's all you want.
People.
There was a time early on, probably in our first year, that Vinnie was like, he knew that I knew Dr. Drew, and he was like, you got to write Dr. Drew. You got to tell him. And I was like, I don't have his information to write him to. I just know him and I see him. And then I've done Loveline a bunch of times. But I don't know how to talk. You know what I mean? It's weird. I don't know how to get in touch other than to direct message him on Twitter, and I'm not going to bother him with our podcast.
Right.
And so I was like, you have to trust that when this is big enough, we're going to get to Dr. Drew.
Right. Yeah.
Because I do know him, but I know that right now is not the time to get in touch with him.
Right.
And sure enough, not only did we get in touch with Dr. Drew, but now Vinny's a regular on the Adam Carolla show. And that's a huge boon for what he's doing. And then subsequently a huge boon for what we're doing, you know?
Yeah.
So it's you have to kind of trust these things and not try to push and blow out your contact list super early.
Yeah, there's a path for sure, and things have to happen in their own time. And for me, one of the things I look at, I'm like, well, today I'm not getting shot at, and no one's trying to kill me, so this must be a pretty good day.
Pretty good day.
I'm going to reach out to Dr. Drew, in the blind, and say, this is what I do. Would you like to? And he gets to say no, and there's really no harm, no foul. If he gets mad that he's got an email. Okay, great. You're going to get another one at some point. But it's that consistency. I'm not trying to harass everybody. I've been chasing Rob Riggle forever. He said a long time ago. It doesn't matter because I'm going to keep doing my job, And if I don't get Rob Riggle this year or next, who cares? Because I'm going to get people along the way. And look, I'm talking to you. We've talked to so many incredible people, and you must agree with this. The podcast gives me opportunities to have world-class conversations that change how I see everything. And I just constantly evolve because I'm constantly having these wonderful, wonderful conversations that we get to share. And then people are like, did you hear that conversation that you just had? And I'm like, I did. I heard it like 5 times because I edited it. But yeah, it's incredible. So I love to hear that you're thinking the same way. It's just be consistent, show up on time, hit your mark, tell the truth. And if you do those things, you will get better at each one of those things. And you'll do it. You guys can't just talk about NSNG because that'd be the end of the show. Vinny would say, how'd you do this week? And you'd say, I did okay. NSNG for life. Roll the credits. Like, that's it.
I know.
But that's not what we want.
I mean, we have to address something, but if I can't, we do an hour-long podcast. To me, like, that would be like, oh, God, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's quite a journey. And I think that the consistency thing is key. And I think too, you have to kind of train your brain to think of different angles. Like I'm always writing down ideas and questions. Like we have a thing where, Vinny catches a lot of shit from vegans online. And I don't quite know why, because we have a ton of vegans in the NSNG community. It's tough to do, but you can give up sugars and grains and also be a vegan. And so one thing recently was that, one of the vegan doctors has been saying that an egg is a 70 on the glycemic index scale, which would be somewhere around, what's a 70? Something sweet, something pretty sweet would be around a 70. And it makes no sense. So I have my own, what's it called? Blood sugar.
Yeah.
Tester thingy monitor. What is it called? Glucose.
A glucose
blood
monitor.
Glucose.
Yeah.
Where you prick your finger.
Sure.
And I test blood, and I tested, I did the egg test. And so like, I just sit and write down like my blood sugar for 2 hours after eating eggs on 3 different days. Like, it's just like nerdy stuff like that.
Right.
But we're going to like stretch that out into like a half hour.
But what's the answer then? Did you find that it increased your blood glycemic levels or no?
Not at all. Not at all. Not even. In fact, every time it went after an hour, it went down 5 points.
Huh.
Because I usually, for whatever reason, have high blood sugar in the morning.
Interesting. Your pancreas is slow to get up. It's like, I guess so.
Up. It's called Jason Fung, who's the author of the Complete Guide to Fasting. He calls it the dawn phenomenon. Some people release a lot they have cortisol in the morning, and then that releases a lot of blood sugar into the system.
Right. Man, I have so many more questions, but I also don't want to take more of your time, and I also don't want to have to edit a show that's an hour and 20 minutes. So.
No, screw that. We'll just do another episode later.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. That's exactly where I'm going. And I mean this 100%. I'd love to have Lauren on because guys like him that are out there hustling, trying to pitch the next thing, you never know when my piece of content helps him break it.
Yeah.
Positive he's a funny dude because the stuff I saw was hilarious.
He is.
Yeah, I'd love to have you back on. Your husband's name is Lauren. I'm trying to get it right. Tarquinio.
Yeah.
Oh, I can say it even more.
You got it.
Yep. And you're Anna Vocino. And I wanted to say thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Vinny said you were a great guest. You absolutely are. It was fantastic. Everybody should go to annavocino.com, buy the book on Amazon. It's called Eat Happy. You can find her all over social media just by simply putting her name in. Apparently now you can find her on Everpedia because she's got a profile.
I know.
There.
I saw it. I love it so much.
Yeah, and then he's going to keep making it a little better. And the difference between them and Wikipedia, you can actually update your own stuff with the things that you want to put in there. So pretty cool.
That's cool.
You've done a great job. Everybody should really go out and support. If you weigh a little too much like me, definitely look at what these recipes are because I guarantee you they are tasty. Is it different than what you've eaten in the past? Sure. Is it going to taste fantastic? Absolutely. That's one of the things I've learned over and over again. I eat wonderful things all the time, and they are a lot healthier. And I just love that people like you are out there, Anna, helping me rewire how I think about things. Here I am thinking I'm getting healthier, and I'm actually not, by drinking milk. So thank you for all those things. I really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure.